Well, again, we're very glad to have everyone reassembled with us, and we're thankful for all of those that will be watching this either live streamed through our social media platforms or archived later. We're thankful to have you be a part of our studies as we are going through and discussing the ways of the wanderers. Because when we are considering who it is that knows us best, it's going to be the one that created us. So if we are wanting to understand why it is or what it is that causes people to behave certain ways or to do certain things, then why not go back to the architect? The one who knows us from the inside out, knows the very number of the hairs on our head, to comprehend and to understand from Him why it is that we do what we do. We discussed last week from our study of James on why people wander or err from the truth, and that away from God is because of trials. And that the study of that and what James is writing is designed so as to change our view and our outlook and also change our reaction to these trials. And that these trials are those things that happen from without. They're external and not, in fact, internal. But what we're wanting to view today and study today are the things that are going on internally. That they can breed temptations that are from within. So today, James will remove another aspect of the erring and bringing about understanding. James 5:19, brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, we are warned about that. It is possible. Temptation is going to play a major role in wandering away from what God teaches. Many have been led away by temptation. We today can be led away through temptation. But as we are realizing or bringing about that reality, hope can be revived by knowing the possibility of this, but also the possibility of returning to God. So when it comes to dealing with temptation, I'm sure many have the mindset of, okay, where do we start in trying to understand this? Well, let's just start at the beginning. James 1:12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. For when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. James closes this discussion of trials and temptations same as he started it. Blessed. Count it all joy when you fall into temptation. So here we have James writing of his own Beatitudes. And here is the motivation for withstanding temptation. There's a blessing if you do. And that is important because our brains have the tendency of trying to go the route of least resistance. Well, what's the easy way to get around from having to go through this difficulty? You can go that route, but you're not going to get the blessing. The blessing is, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life. It's worth living to go through that temptation. And the motivation, outside of just simply being blessed, is also found at the conclusion of this verse. Notice the motivation is not simply for us to obey Him or for us to trust Him. Now, I'm not neglecting those things, and I'm not trying to put those things down. But we're getting to the source of all of that. This is a command to endure temptation. Why would I obey that? Why would I trust this? The source of all of that is that I'm going to endure this because I love Him. And that is the proper view of it. Why do we go through, why do we suffer the things that we are willing to suffer? Well, He suffered for me. And why did He suffer for me? Why did He suffer for you? Because He loves us. And now, we are in a position to be able to return the favor. A love of God generates faithful obedience to even something like this. When we love God, we will want what it is that pleases Him. We will just have that desire to do for Him anything that we possibly can that will make Him happy. When we have this motivation, we will then, in gratitude, want to do those things He tells us to do. And these things that He tells us to do, they are for our good. And that we will then have the desire to abstain from those lusts. So here's the command. You endure. That's where we get our word for endurance. It's going to be difficult. It is going to be rough. It is going to be tough. But you keep going. You don't give up. You do not succumb to that temptation, that desire to quit. And why? There's a blessing in it for you. And to go beyond that is because I'm not willing to give up, because He was not willing to give up on me. And the element of quitting, giving up, was there. Jesus Himself said, "Do you not know that I could call forth legions of angels and not have to endure what He did?" So as many have pointed out and have done so correctly, it was not the nails that kept Jesus on the cross. It was the love that He had for the entire world that kept Him there. We are encouraged to endure temptation. Peter will write, this abstaining from these fleshly lusts, from where these temptations come. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 11. Dearly beloved, hear, brethren, I beseech you, I beg you, as strangers and pilgrims, that's what we are, abstain from fleshly lust which war against the soul. When we truly love God, then we will trust Him completely. And in trusting Him completely, we then know that what He wants for us is that He wants what is best for His children that He loves. So these things that God is saying, hey, stay away from this. Stay away from these fleshly lusts. Well, why? What's the benefit? What's the blessing? They war against the soul. They will bring corruption. They will bring destruction. They're not good for you. Okay, God, I believe you. I trust you that you have my best intentions in mind. So what happens if I do not endure? That I do not abstain and I give in to fleshly lusts. The balance of love has become shifted. If I fall into temptation, that means that I'm allowing my love for God to grow weak because I'm not willing to endure. And I think we've sung that hymn here about when my love for Christ grows weak. And it's amazing that many other people, that many in the denominational world outside of the Lord's church, they would sing it too, but they don't believe it. Because with them, it's once saved, always saved. But even in singing that song, it's the reality of, yes, my affection, though it should be placed with God, can be placed elsewhere. And that's how we give in to temptation. When my love for Christ, when my love for the Father grows weak, and because of trials, because of trouble, the struggles of life, then produces a desire within me to try and escape those hardships. We give in to that temptation. It's that which brings the temptation in. So in fact, these things grow from each other. And that's the reason why James writes about it the way that he does. Trials come first, and because of trials and trouble, you don't want to keep going. You don't want to endure. It would be easier to just give in. And we fall to temptation. They are connected, though many would view them as being disconnected. And that's a problem. And we can even understand this. I mean, the understanding is there even from the secular realm. In just studying our physical makeup and how our brains work. When people are stressed, the brain seeks for pleasure. Our brain sees stress as danger. It's harmful. And our brain recognizes that's happening, and our brain steps in and says, oh, you're not feeling good. Here's what would normally make us feel good. You're unhappy. Here's what would bring us happiness, and the brain seeks that out. And James addresses that next. James 1:13 through 16, we have recorded for us, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, do not wander my beloved brethren. So here we are presented with two key ideas: lust and enticed. Those are the two key ideas when it comes to temptation. In being tempted by something. Lust is the opposite of self-control, which means lust is an uncontrolled desire, something that is not kept in check. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can have lust towards those things that are good and those things which are beneficial. Paul wrote to the Corinthian brethren, when it came to miraculous gifts and the spiritual abilities, he said to them that they should covet that which was better. Well, I thought coveting was bad. No, not in all contexts. If we are coveting after, lusting after those things which are good and right and from God, hungering and thirsting after righteousness, guess what that is? That's a lust. It's an uncontrollable desire that we have. But of course, this is in the context of the negative. Those things that are of the flesh, that war against the Spirit. And then the next word, the next idea, enticed. In the Greek is deliazo. It means to entrap, beguile. In 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 14, Peter uses, or verse 18 rather, it's the allurement. These are wells without water, clouds that are carried away with a tempest, to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever. For when they speak great swelling words of vanity, notice this, they allure, and that's the word for entice. They allure through the lusts of the flesh. What is it that the flesh desires? Well, the flesh can desire a lot of things. But in the midst of trial, in the midst of trouble, the flesh desires most of all for that to go away. And so we will in fact seek out ways, according to the flesh, to make that happen. They allure through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness. Those that were clean escape from them who live in error. So even with Peter, it's the same setup. Lust and enticement. What we have being described here is the enticement, that beguiling. It's right there inside of the word. Notice there, L-U-R-E. Allure. That's what you use to go out fishing. To entice a fish to take the hook, to take the bait. And you've got it snagged. But depending on the kind of fish that you're going after, you use different lures. Some lures are bright and pretty and flashy, so as to get the fish to come in, entice the fish to take the bait that way. Some lures are designed to agitate, to make the fish aggravated, and then to come after and take the bait. There are all kinds of lures out there that are designed to go after the flesh if not controlled. Now, with these ideas in place, can we not then understand and appreciate why God had James record it this way in describing it as those who fall into temptation? You weren't looking for it. It's like a pit that's set in the road, and that's been covered up. You're just going along your merry way, and you fell into it. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall. To fall into something that is all around. For example, to light among or to light upon. It was purely by chance. To be surrounded with, to fall among. So it's the same idea as with the parable of the Good Samaritan, and that you have that individual, and it says that he fell among thieves. He wasn't going on his way looking for thieves to come and rob him. They pounced, unawares. And that's what God says temptation is like. You just take, for example, David. And the mess that he got into. How did it start? With a temptation. Now, granted, David was not where he was supposed to be. There was a war going on, and the king was supposed to be out at war, but he stayed home. But even then, you can't hold that against him. It was by chance he was at home. It was by chance he went up on his roof. It was by chance he saw a woman bathing. There's the allure. There's the snare. Now what's the lust? What's the uncontrolled desire? Well, we know David could not control himself. Well, he could. He refused to control himself when it came to women. There's your deadly combination on why people fall into temptation. But we're being told, we're being shown very clearly that from all of this, that even with that, David could have endured. He didn't have to do what he did next, but he fell. Why? It's explained for us right here. When he should have realized and he should have known, you know what, this is my area of weakness. And here we are in a time of trouble, we're at war, and we've already established that in times of stress, the brain looks for pleasure. A distraction. David fell. That's how it operates for all of us. Sin is a trap. And Satan places on that trap what it is that we do not wish to control. For David, it was women. For others, it could be any host of things. Just go through Galatians chapter 5 and a list of the works of the flesh, and you can insert anything into this trap that works as a lure. I mean, even for that matter, you can just stay in the book of James, the letter that James writes. And he writes about so many things that the flesh has a desire for, that people find fulfillment in. They refuse to control it. One of those things ends up being the tongue. What's a snare, a lure for some people? Man, I just love to give them a piece of my mind. That's a lust. And then the enticement, the opportunity gets laid out there before them to let their tongue fly, and they do it, and they fall into sin. Satan lays out our wants so as to entice. It's the idea of, it's the forbidden fruit. I know I'm not supposed to do it. I know I'm not supposed to be involved in it, but that's part of the excitement of it. To where it can even be just a flat out strong solicitation to sin. But it's just as James says, that when all of this comes about and the conclusion is laid out, death is what awaits. Now, with some things that can be physical death, but what we're ultimately talking about is that which wars against the soul. Spiritual death, separation from God, separation from brethren. When it is finished, it brings forth death. But we never see it that way. Just like the fish never sees the hooks. All he sees are the shiny elements, the glistening elements. Or there's this thing that's right here, it's agitating me, man, I just want to get rid of it. That's how we are with temptation. It's the glitz, the glamour, the flashiness, and we never see the hooks. But God is showing us the hooks today. Sin will teach you more than you want to know. Sin will take you farther than you want to go. Sin will keep you longer than you want to stay, and sin will make you pay more than you want to pay. And that needs to be the reality for all of us. The desire is just to give in. What's a little bit going to hurt? It can hurt a lot. It hurts more than you want to. But just as we said, in like changing these perspective of trials, we now change our view on temptations. We are removing that mask of what seems to be beyond our comprehension, and now we can make plans so as to be able to overcome. And it's back with verse 12. There's no need to succumb. There's no need to give in. While our brain, our flesh will tell us, oh no, it'll be better just to go this route. It'll be easier. It'll bring pleasure. We need to have the realization, no, it may be tougher, but this is far better. There is a blessing for enduring. And it allows me, the temptation is an opportunity for me to show to God how much I love Him. So let's put it all together. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love Him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth He any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Just like troubles are a reality, temptations are a reality. They are going to happen. And it's often when we are in trouble that temptation comes. And just like with trials, becoming a child of God does not remove us from trials. It does not remove us from temptation either. Because even God's literal Son was tempted. Matthew 4, verse 1, then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Now again, just think about when that temptation came. 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. That's trouble. That's stress. That's difficulty. That is prime time for a temptation to come on. Here's the literal Son of God, and this is what He went through. And we're told in Hebrews 4:15 why this was necessary and the benefit for us that He went through these temptations. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Blessed are ye if you endure. Is it just you that's being blessed by enduring temptation? No. Other people are blessed if you endure. It is showing to others you do not have to give in. You can overcome this. You can make it through this. But we have to be able to know ourselves. To know what it is that has the ability to get us. And then to be on guard. You talk to people that are trying to quit smoking, or they're trying to quit drinking, or they're trying to quit something out there that they know is bad for them. And they end up relapsing, and you talk to them about the relapse, majority of the time they will tell you, well, it's because I was going through some difficulty. In fact, just last month, I was talking to my new neighbor, and he was talking about his work and how difficult it can be, and how that he drinks a lot of energy drinks and smokes and different stuff like that. And he said, you know, I've quit that stuff in the past. And he was smoking a cigarette while he was talking to me. He said, but you know, it's been really stressful at work. And so I'm smoking again. It's the same thing that happens with us. We go through trial. We go through difficulty. We have those things that bring pleasure. For him, it's smoking. For others, it could be food. That food ends up becoming a coping mechanism for stress and for pain, for trouble. The Bible speaks against gluttony. You endure. For others, could be the desire for position, power, to be wanted. And that was the problem with the Pharisees. That was their temptation. Their uncontrolled, or their lust and their uncontrolled desire. And the allurement was the office of priesthood. Well, that will get me attention. That will get me the praise of men. And that's not even what that office is for. That office is not for you to get attention. It's for you to help people. But that's their lust. The things of the flesh not kept in check. the battle and the war that's supposed to be taking place, Romans chapter 7. And we end up getting discouraged by temptation. It's a tale as old as time. People succumb, they give into temptation, being seduced by that allure of sin. Why withstand it? Why hold back? It's what you want. Just give in. How many people have been allured into adultery? Just because work atmosphere, things not going well at home, things are not good in your own relationship. And you see the shiny thing over here that you're not supposed to have. And you decide to give in. The temptation to steal money or merchandise from the place that you're working. Or even from your neighbor. Well, I could really use that. And there's something about that rush that comes from lifting something from somebody's backyard when they're not looking. We face temptation in those areas. We face temptation even when it comes to good friends. Even today, with people that are in positions to help people and to counsel people to improve their own lives. And they themselves give in to temptation. Christians fall into this too. And the danger is that we can get discouraged because it is happening. There's no reason to get discouraged about that. It's a reality. It's going to happen. Do not feel guilty that it is happening to you. We get discouraged by the effort that it takes. We feel guilty because it is happening to us, and we think that it shouldn't. Well, I'm a Christian. I shouldn't even be dealing with this stuff. Well, when did you become Superman? The last I checked, we are still in the same physical bodies that we had before we became a Christian. So those same desires that we had before are going to be the same desires that we have now. But now we are better equipped to understand and to stand against these things. We do not need to throw away all morals just because it's difficult. But just like with the trials, going through the trial, suffering through it, enduring makes us better. And then to recognize that if we do fall into temptation, that we are willing to succumb to these things, what it is that we are actually sacrificing. What are we willing to sacrifice just for that small taste of the temptation? That little bit of bait that's there on the trap. Many will sacrifice reputation, they'll sacrifice homes, they'll sacrifice their family, sacrifice a good paying job. And that really is it. It goes back into the discussion of Jeremiah, and it's a remembering of the good things that we have. And appreciating what it is that we have. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights. You know what? If I'm thankful with the home and the family that I have, I'm not going to go out looking for a new home or a new family. So it comes back to that element of contentment. It comes back to that element of, where am I placing my affection? If you love something, you're going to take care of it. You're going to nurture it. You're not going to do anything that will bring harm or damage it. But those uncontrolled lusts, you know what? I have some love for you, but I have some love for this even more. And ultimately what that is a love of self. I love myself and what it is that I want more than you and more than God. If we are going to be able to overcome temptation, we must trust God completely. Trust Him that He knows what's best. And that what God commands of us is best for us. And the best way that this is illustrated is in the very relationship and covenant that He's given to us in marriage. The world says, how can I be tied down to one person, for the rest of my life? And that some people would even go so far as to try to make the comparison, which there is no comparison between us and the animal kingdom and their animal lives. Well, you see all these animals, they're not stuck with one mate, which there are plenty of animals that actually stick for one mate. But we're not animals. We are in fact above the animals. And those individuals that are arguing that way are arguing from a position of, well, God's just trying to keep me from something. And it's true, He is trying to keep you from something. He's trying to keep you from hurt, pain, and the bad consequences that come from that kind of life. And that in fact, one man to one woman, and that for life, is in fact the best way to go. For us to trust that when God restricts us from something, that He is restricting us from things that will hurt us greatly. And it's funny that in these kind of realms, that even though we are grown and we are adults, we still behave like children when it comes to our way of thinking. Why won't mom and dad let me stick my fingers in that outlet? What's in there? They're just trying to keep me back from having fun. They're trying to keep you back from dying. That's what God's trying to do with us. And we, I won't say constantly, but not constantly, but so often, like little children, want to be rebellious and have the mindset, you know what, I think I know better. Huh? That's constant. And then we go and we try to stick our fingers in that outlet, and then we're surprised when we get hurt. How could this happen? What are you talking about? The writing was on the wall. We have to see through the enticement. We have to see through the lure and what's on the other side of it. It's a trap. Man, I wish I had that Star Wars image. It's a trap. So as we bring another element in tying all of these things together, all these things are connected. We're not needing to forget where we came from. Why do brethren err? Could be because of trouble. Could be because of temptation that comes from trouble. And that in a lot of regards, brethren end up being led astray by false doctrine about these points and about these elements. So many of our brethren fall short and fall away because they have been taught wrong about temptation. Oh, you're a Christian. You're not supposed to have temptation in your life. You're not supposed to be dealing with this kind of stuff. What are you talking about? This stuff is all around us. So guess what that means? At some point or another, I am going to fall. And brethren fall further away from the truth because when they do end up falling into these snares because they were ill prepared to face them, and then brethren want to come along wagging the finger, how could you? That's the wrong way of looking at this. And it's the wrong way of dealing with it. Erring, wandering because of false doctrine, because of becoming unfaithful due to trials. You know, trials confuse. It is confusing to go through trials. Here I am striving to be faithful, trying my best. I'm wanting to rely on God and follow after His commandments. And now here I am in some type of trouble. That just doesn't make any sense. You're right, it doesn't. Endure it. Stay the course. Trust in what God has said. There's a blessing in it for you. Do not let your love grow weak. And then, brethren, wander because of not knowing how to withstand the temptation. Through all of it, we must trust God completely. This is what He has said. This is what I'm going to do. And the best is going to happen. So as we have offered, for those that are not members of the Lord's church, we hope that this will bring hope for you. That it will give you a presentation of people that have a realistic outlook about life. Yes, the life of a Christian is wonderful. It's the best life that you could possibly live. But it is still a life that has trouble. And that in those times of trouble, you're going to be tempted to give up. But let's change how we view those trials and those temptations. That if I'm willing to endure and that I'm willing to suffer, there's a blessing for me. And that my willingness to endure suffering and temptation and to endure it as a Christian is a chance for me to be strengthened and to show my love to God. And that's why people should want to be a Christian, to obey the gospel, have their sins forgiven by doing what He commands. For us that are members of the Lord's church and that have been members of the Lord's church for a long time, let's not deceive ourselves. And in fact, I think that's actually the next topic that we'll be looking at next week from James. It's about self-deception. Let us not deceive ourselves into thinking that we are above this. That's how we fall. That we begin to say, well, this should not be happening to me. No, no, no. You're the best person for this to happen to. Because you're a Christian, you're a child of God, you can endure it. And one of the many means that we have is studies like this, members of the Lord's body that are studying this together and learning this together and recognizing this about each other, so that when the time of temptation comes, I do not have to be ashamed. Because everybody will understand. And with understanding comes a readiness to help. There'll be a circling of the wagons. Here's somebody that's needing protection. Here's somebody that's needing strengthening. And everybody will come running. So we offer at this time, for those that have a need,